spin it.
How do you know the consistency?
By eye.
By eye? Just by working with it over the years?
That's no good. With all mud, when you mix it, you have to mix it up. Even in the mixer, you have to let it sit for at least 5 minutes and then just continuously running, or just let it sit in the bucket for a few minutes so it can start setting up, and then you add some more water to it and get it to the consistency you want. That way, it just doesn't set up as quick on your board, on your mud boards and stuff for you. Gives you a little more work time with it.
How much open time do you have?
If
a bucket like this that much?
A full 5-gallon bucket on a stack stone is about 15-20 square feet. So,
Okay.
yeah, you can go through it pretty quick on a big straight wall.
So a half hour or something, you think maybe? Or open time?
Before you have to add water, if I was dumping on the board right now, it'd be about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. Once it's spun again, yeah, you probably get half hour to an hour before you'd have to add more water. Depends on how hot it is outside and stuff like that.
So is it, if it's setting up on you, you just add more water and mix it up again?
Yeah, just add a little water on your mud board, and I think it's 93% cured in 7 days, and then it's 30 days for the rest of the 3%. So for it to be 100%, it's a month. Run a vapor barrier, tar paper. That's to stop the moisture from getting into the house. And then we staple the wire on. And then we have to scratch coat it like this. And then once it's cured, then like even the next day you can come back and you can actually install on it.
Do you want to explain why we do the scratch coat?
It's basically just to seal the house. To seal the house, and then it helps bond the stone when you put the mud on. The two muds bond together a little better. I use a notch trowel. That way, once I put it on, I can just turn and rough it up. Where a lot of guys, once it's halfway through, they use a regular trowel, and then they just take a brush and brush it, and that's how you get this. You want that roughness so that the mud bonds into the little cracks and everything, and then onto the back of the stone. So you just take your mud and put it on your mud board. Always wet your mud board because the wood will dry out the mud real quick. And then you just scoop it on your board, onto your hawk. And you kind of tilt your hawk forward and scoop upwards so you get some on there. And you just cover it. Like that, and rough it up.
Generally guys go up and down, and then when they smooth it out, they go side to side.
Yeah.
It's better to have the roughness sort of horizontal, so it's better, theoretically better.
It doesn't really matter as long as it's rough. That way, the roughness on the back of the stones or whatever, it gets into the grooves and it catches. You just want to be able, you just don't want smooth surface on smooth surface. For river rock, you basically, there's two ways of putting it on all stones. One, you kind of go around the outside edges and just leave a little tiny space in the middle. That way, when you stick it on, it'll squish and you get a little bit of suction, so it'll actually just stay. The other way, lots of guys do is they just put it right here, and then they just make sure the whole back of the stone is covered. And then they know they've got full, and it'll stay too. Leave a little bit in the middle, and then you just kind of try and keep them close. You can almost have them touching in different spots, and then that way, with the mud like this, you don't have to grout afterwards. You can just smooth out the joints and you can brush them. Or other people, they go like this, stick it on so there's no mud at all. And then if you do it that way, then you have to grout them afterwards, either with a little slicker or a grout bag. Drop it in, bring it down, fold it over. You can obviously put a lot more in, and then yeah, you just squeeze it, and out comes the mud.
Amazing. It's truly mind-blowing.
Smooth it out, like that. Kind of dig it away, just so you kind of get the look you want. And then after a little while, you take a brush, and you just kind of brush it. And then that'd be done. Obviously, I'd wait a little longer to do it, but that's pretty much how you do it. But for stack stones, they're all square, so that makes it easier. And you can do it either way again. Then you just place it on. Give it a tap. Clean off the top of your stones. That way, for your next course, they're not going to be lifted up by it. Then you just take your stone out. And you just keep going. So when you're installing them, you don't ever want a straight joint like that, because then you'll actually see it. It's really noticeable. So when you put your corners on, you'll alternate them. There's a long end and a short end. So you alternate them, and then when you put your next one on, then you've overlapped your joint, and they're just not as noticeable. And you'll just put them on, and you'll check it. And I'm reading this end is high because the bubble's on that side. So my next corner, I would just put a little bit of mud down on here, and then tap it down so that I can bring it out level with the next stone. So then when it comes to jointing them, if you've got a little bit of a spot like that, I need a little bit of a spot, so I go like that, and then I push it down, and that'll just let a little bit of mud sit there, so that way when you put your next stone on, I just put the next stone on, I can put my level on, and then you just stick them on.
Way too fast that time.
Definitely with brick, you want to start at the bottom. You don't want to start at the top and try and work your way down. Like that. So with brick, you butter them, and then you stick them on. And it's more technique that you learn your spacing.
The distance.
It's usually about 10 mil.
That's about 3/8, is it? 10 mil?
Yeah. Or the other way you can do it, and then you'll do the same thing, and you'll start with a half brick and then put your full brick on and stuff like that. The way I like to do it is I put them on, and then I take a little bit of mud and I put it on top, and then I put the next one on. Because if I do it this way, the joint is full.
And then it just squeezes the joint out.
And then I will butter the end of the brick. Put a little on the end, so that joint's full. And then you just cut the mud off. You tap it down to where it needs to be. If you don't do this way, and you just stick them on, then you're bringing the grout bag out again. And two different sizes. And you just take it, fill it in. And that just leaves a nice round joint, right? Or you can use your slicker and top them up like that. But you want to make sure they're nice and full. And then either you can just brush it and round joint again. That's usually how you do block. That's how most block walls are done. Or you can use this. It's called a Raker. It's as simple as they come. Some guys call it the bricklayer's Hot Wheels. And all it is a concrete nail. You set the depth that you want by untwisting there. And then you just follow your joints. The veneer, they just chop the face off. And if for a corner, they'll cut the end too, so it's an L shape. So that's just a standard brick. This is a 10 centimeter cinder block. These are considered the lightweights. This one is made out of cinder. You can get them made out of concrete, and they're about 3 times as heavy. And you would take your half, put it in. Take the brick. Put it in. Put it on, and then you'd have your level. You tap your course. You cut the mud off the front if you got any sticking out. The big 3 things they'll just go after you in school is level, plumb, tail, is what they call it. So you level it, and then you go to your end, you plumb it. So you got to tap it outwards or whatever so your level is reading properly. And then you have to plumb your front. Anytime there's a corner, you got to plumb both sides of your corner. And then once you got all that done, then you tail it. You put it across, and you just tap the ones in the center to make sure everything is lined up. So that's basically how you do it. There is a top and bottom. That's a bottom. That's a top. It's a little bit smoother. It also, if you've got small fingers, is a bit of a handle. So you'll turn your block, and you'll butter the ends. And you want to do the top and the bottom like that, because that bonds the mud to the block. If you don't do the top and bottom, when you turn the block, it'll just fall off. And then you set them into place. And then you tap level and stuff. But to do the second course, instead of doing a full thick bed like that, since there's the holes, you give your mud a shake, and you just go along the outside edges. And then you would, obviously you'd start with your half. I don't have any halves here. And then you would just set your next one on. And then you'd still take your level. You tap it so it reads level. For split face block like this, you have to do your plumbing in the back. I'm out a little bit, so you got to bring it forward. You tap here. If you got to kick it out the other way, you tap at the back. You just tap it to where it needs to be, and it will touch all the way up, and it will read plumb, right dead center. You want it right in between the lines. And then that would be plumb, and then you would stick this on like that, and you would tail it. And it's touching here, it's touching here, it's touching here. And that's how it would be.